The sharp sting of the cold wind bit into her skin as Naomi gasped, her chest heaving as if she'd just surfaced from the depths of an icy ocean. She sat upright, her heart pounding like a war drum. The room she found herself in was sterile, a hospital bed beneath her, and the beeping of machines punctuating the air. Her first thought was confusion. She had died. She remembered it vividly, the car crash, the shriek of twisting metal, and then nothing. But now, against all logic, she was back. Before we start, hit the like and subscribe buttons for more exclusive news. Naomi's gaze darted around the room. A nurse rushed in, eyes wide with astonishment, and then a doctor, their voices overlapping as they asked questions. "Can you hear me? Can you tell us your name?" She answered automatically, her mind elsewhere. The sensation of returning to life, of her soul being dragged back into her body, still lingered. It was not a gentle reawakening, but an abrupt, jarring plunge into a world she no longer felt connected to. As she touched her chest, where the faint ache of fractured ribs told her she'd undergone CPR, a single haunting thought consumed her. What she had seen while she was gone. The afterlife was nothing like the serene paradise she had been taught to believe in as a child. There were no golden gates, no cherubic angels singing hymns. Instead, it was a place of stark, terrifying truths. Naomi's mind reeled as fragments of her experience clawed their way back into her consciousness. It began with darkness, a void so absolute it felt alive, pressing against her and threatening to consume her entirely. Then came the voices, whispers that seemed to emanate from every direction, each one unraveling secrets about the world, about humanity, and about herself. She had learned things no mortal was meant to know, truths that gnawed at the edges of her sanity. The afterlife was not the end, nor was it a beginning. It was a mirror reflecting every lie, every sin, and every hidden facet of existence in horrifying clarity. The whispers had told her that life was a tapestry woven with threads of deception, that every soul carried the weight of not just their own actions, but those of an interconnected web of lives spanning eons. She saw it all. The wars fought in the name of false gods, the unspoken atrocities buried beneath layers of history, and the cruel indifference of whatever force governed existence. Naomi shuddered as she tried to block out the memories, but they surged forward with relentless determination. She remembered walking, if it could be called that, through a landscape that shifted and writhed, its shapes and colors defying comprehension. The ground beneath her feet was not solid, but seemed to ripple like liquid, and the sky above was a churning vortex of shadows and light. She wasn't alone in this place. Other souls drifted by, their forms distorted and incomplete, as if the essence of who they had been was unraveling. Some screamed, their cries echoing without end. Others stared blankly, resigned to their fate. What terrified her most was the moment she reached the precipice, a towering abyss that radiated an indescribable energy. She had been compelled to peer into it, and what she saw there shook her to her core. It was a truth so vast, so incomprehensible that her mind could barely grasp it. Life and death were not opposites, but two sides of the same coin, perpetually feeding into one another in a cycle devoid of purpose or meaning. The universe itself was a construct, an elaborate facade masking the chaotic, indifferent void that lay beneath. The memories of her journey were interrupted by the sound of her mother's voice. Naomi turned to see the older woman standing in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. "You're alive!" her mother choked out, rushing to embrace her. Naomi stiffened at the contact, the warmth of her mother's arms a stark contrast to the cold, hollow sensations she had carried back with her. She wanted to cry, to tell her mother what she had seen, but the words caught in her throat. How could she explain the inexpressible? How could she describe the horrors of an afterlife that defied every comforting notion they had ever believed? In the days that followed, Naomi tried to resume her life, but everything felt alien. The world seemed thinner, less real, as if she could see the cracks in its facade. The people around her, friends, family, strangers on the street, appeared oblivious to the deeper truths she now carried. They laughed, they worried about trivialities, they dreamed of futures that she knew were illusions. She began to isolate herself, consumed by the weight of her knowledge. Sleep offered no respite. Each time she closed her eyes, she was transported back to that shifting landscape of the afterlife. The whispers returned, louder now, and more insistent. They revealed secrets about those she loved, things she could never unknow. Her father's hidden infidelity, her best friend's betrayal, even darker truths about herself, things she had buried deep in her subconscious, rose to the surface, forcing her to confront the person she truly was. One night, unable to bear the torment, Naomi ventured out into the cold air, hoping that the physical sensation might anchor her. She wandered aimlessly through the city, her breath fogging in the moonlight. The streets were eerily quiet, and for a moment she wondered if she was still alive at all, or if she had somehow slipped back into the afterlife. As she turned a corner, she saw a figure standing beneath a flickering street lamp. At first, she thought it was a trick of the light, but as she drew closer, she realized the figure was watching her. It was one of the souls she had seen in the afterlife, its form as distorted and unsettling as she remembered. Panic seized her, and she stumbled backward, but the figure raised a hand as if to reassure her. "You brought something back," it said, its voice a chorus of overlapping tones. "You have seen what lies beyond the veil, and now it sees you." Naomi's heart raced as she struggled to understand the meaning of its words. The figure continued, stepping closer. "The truth is not meant to be known by the living. It will unravel you, just as it unravels all who enter the void. You cannot escape it." The days that followed were a blur of paranoia and dread. Naomi began to see more of the figures, always at the edges of her vision, watching her with an intensity that made her skin crawl. She tried to confide in her mother, but her words sounded like the ramblings of a mad woman. "You're just traumatized," her mother said gently, stroking her hair. "You've been through something unimaginable. It's natural to feel this way." But Naomi knew it was more than trauma. The whispers grew louder, their truths more insidious. She began to lose track of time, unsure whether she was awake or dreaming. Her body weakened, her skin pale and gaunt, as if the knowledge she carried was draining her of life itself. And through it all, the figures loomed closer, their presence a constant reminder of the afterlife's grasp. Desperate for answers, Naomi sought out people who claimed to have had near-death experiences. She attended support groups, visited forums, and even met with spiritual leaders, but none of their stories matched what she had seen. Most spoke of light, of peace, of loved ones welcoming them with open arms. Naomi envied them, but she also knew they hadn't gone as far as she had. They hadn't peered into the abyss. One night, as she sat alone in her apartment, the whispers reached a crescendo. They demanded her attention, pulling her to the edge of her sanity. Naomi stood trembling and looked into the mirror for a moment. She didn't recognize the person staring back at her. Her reflection seemed to shimmer, the face distorted like the souls she had seen in the afterlife. "Why me?" she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Why did I have to see it?" The answer came not from the whispers, but from within her own mind. A chilling realization that froze her in place. She had been chosen, not by a higher power, but by the void itself. It had marked her, pulled her back from death to serve as a conduit for its truths. She was no longer just Naomi. She was a vessel, a bearer of knowledge that no human was meant to possess. The figures appeared again that night, surrounding her in a circle. This time they spoke as one. "You cannot live with the burden you carry. The truth will consume you as it consumes all. There is only one way to end the torment." Naomi understood what they meant. She had to return to the afterlife to face the abyss once more, but this time she wouldn't come back. With a sense of grim determination, she began to prepare, her mind strangely calm despite the gravity of what she was about to do. She wrote letters to her loved ones, apologizing for leaving them, but insisting that this was the only way to find peace. As she stood on the edge of the rooftop, the city sprawling below her, she felt the figures gathering behind her. Their presence was no longer terrifying, but almost comforting, as if they were welcoming her home. Naomi closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and stepped forward. The fall was brief, but in that fleeting moment, she felt a sense of liberation. The whispers faded, replaced by a profound silence. And then, she was back in the void, standing before the abyss. This time she did not resist. She stepped into it, surrendering herself to the vast, incomprehensible truth. Naomi's story did not end there. Those who knew her remembered her as a young woman who had defied death, only to be consumed by it once more. But somewhere in the shifting, writhing landscape of the afterlife, her essence lingered. She had become part of the void, her soul unraveling and merging with the fabric of existence. And perhaps, In that dissolution, she finally found the peace she had sought all along. Naomi's dissolution into the void did not bring an end to her existence, nor did it silence the whispers. Instead, her essence began to merge with the swirling currents of the afterlife, shifting and expanding, her consciousness stretching far beyond the boundaries of her former self. What remained of Naomi now existed as part of the very fabric of the place she had feared most. Yet rather than obliteration, she found herself undergoing a transformation, one that was both terrifying and enlightening. Her mind, or what was left of it, began to perceive the countless other souls that inhabited the void. Some were trapped in a loop of despair, endlessly reliving their regrets. Others floated freely, their identities reduced to fragments of memories. Naomi understood them in a way she never could before. She could feel their pain, their longing, their confusion as if it were her own. She became aware that these souls were all connected, tangled in a vast web of shared history and choices. The whispers were no longer external, they were now a part of her, a collective voice that resonated with her newfound being. Through this connection, she learned that the void was not a punishment, nor was it a test. It was a repository, a holding space for truths too profound and too complex for mortal minds to comprehend. Each soul that entered the void brought with it a piece of the puzzle, contributing to an ever-expanding mosaic of knowledge. Naomi realized that her own journey through life and death had added to this collection, her experiences and choices weaving another thread into the infinite tapestry. But there was a darker revelation as well. Not all the souls were willing contributors. Some had fought against the void's pull, clinging to the life they had left behind. These souls were fractured, their resistance leaving them fragmented and incomplete. Naomi could feel their anguish, their desperate attempts to hold on to their identities, and she wondered if she would have shared their fate had she not surrendered to the abyss. As time, or whatever passed for time in this place, stretched on, Naomi's understanding deepened. She began to perceive the structure of the void, its ceaseless motion, and its intricate layers. At the outermost edges, near where she had first arrived, the void was chaotic and turbulent, a storm of conflicting energies and shattered realities. But as she ventured deeper, she found an eerie calm. Here, the whispers quieted, replaced by a profound stillness that seemed to vibrate with potential. In this stillness, Naomi encountered beings unlike the fragmented souls she had seen before. They were vast and incomprehensible, their forms shifting between light and shadow, their presence radiating a power that made her essence quiver. These beings, she realized, were not like her. They were not remnants of mortal lives. They were ancient, predating humanity itself, and they moved through the void with purpose. Naomi could sense their awareness of her, but they did not speak. Instead, they emanated a kind of knowing, as if they existed to observe and to preserve the delicate balance of this strange dimension. As she spent more time in their presence, Naomi began to sense fragments of their knowledge seeping into her. They held the secrets of existence, the origins of life and death, and the forces that governed both. From them, she learned that the void was not merely an afterlife, but a nexus, a meeting point where all realities converged. Every choice made, every action taken, rippled through the void, shaping its currents and influencing the fates of countless worlds. Naomi's understanding of her own existence shifted once again. She had thought her life was insignificant, a single thread in the vast web of humanity. But here, she saw the ripple effects of her choices. She saw the lives she had touched, the chain reaction set into motion by her actions, both great and small. Even the moments she had thought inconsequential, a kind word to a stranger, a fleeting decision to turn left instead of right, had echoes that reverberated through the fabric of reality. She saw, too, the moments of pain she had caused, the unintended consequences of her selfishness, her fear, her anger. It was overwhelming, this total clarity. But in it, Naomi found a strange comfort. She was no longer just a single thread. She was part of the weave, a participant in something far greater than herself. She understood now why the void had called her back. It had chosen her not to punish or torment, but to reveal, to expand her understanding beyond the limits of mortal perception. But as Naomi delved deeper into the void's mysteries, she began to sense another force at work. It was subtle at first, a faint tremor in the stillness. But as she focused on it, She realized it was growing stronger, a dark current cutting through the void's intricate balance. This force was unlike anything she had encountered before. It was not part of the void's natural structure, but something invasive, something alien. It moved with a malevolence that made her essence recoil, and she could feel its impact on the other souls around her. The fragmented souls were particularly vulnerable to this force. Naomi watched in horror as it latched onto them, feeding on their despair and fear, twisting them into grotesque shapes that bore little resemblance to their former selves. Even the ancient beings seemed unsettled by its presence, their movements growing more frantic as they tried to contain its spread. Naomi felt a pull, a compulsion to confront this force, though she had no idea how. She was no longer human, no longer bound by the limitations of her mortal body, but she was still small, still insignificant compared to the vastness of the void. Yet, as she moved toward the source of the disturbance, she felt a strange sense of resolve. She carried within her the knowledge of the void, the whispers and the interconnectedness of all things. Perhaps that would be enough. The closer she came to the disturbance, the more she felt its effects. It was a black hole, a gravitational pull that threatened to consume everything in its path. The souls it touched were stripped of their essence, their memories and identities erased until nothing remained. Even the void itself seemed to bend and warp around it, its intricate patterns unraveling in the force's wake. Naomi reached the epicenter and found herself facing a presence unlike anything she had ever imagined. It was not a being in the traditional sense, but a mass of chaos, a swirling vortex of entropy that radiated pure destruction. It was the antithesis of the void's purpose, a force that sought to dismantle the delicate balance of existence and reduce everything to nothingness. Though she had no physical form, Naomi felt the force's pull, its insidious tendrils reaching for her. She resisted, drawing on the strength of the whispers that now lived within her. She called upon the knowledge she had gained, the truths she had seen, and the connections she had felt. And as she did, she realized that this force was not entirely separate from the void. It was a part of it, a shadow cast by the light, a necessary counterpart to the truths the void contained. Naomi understood then what she had to do. She could not destroy the force, nor could she banish it, but she could integrate it, bring it back into balance with the void. It would require everything she had, every fragment of her essence. She would have to give herself completely to the void to become a part of its structure in a way she had not yet experienced. It was a sacrifice, but it felt right. With a final burst of resolve, Naomi plunged into the heart of the vortex. The force tore at her, trying to unravel her essence as it had so many others, but she held firm. She reached deep into herself, drawing on the connections she had felt, the web of souls that spanned the void and beyond. She channeled their strength, their resilience, their hope, and slowly the force began to change. Its chaotic edges softened, its destructive energy tempered by the balance Naomi brought. As the force subsided, Naomi felt herself dissolving completely. She was no longer a distinct entity, but a part of the void itself, woven into its fabric in a way that was both terrifying and beautiful. She could no longer think or feel in the way she once had, but she knew, on some level, that she had succeeded. The void was whole again, its balance restored. Back in the mortal world, those who had known Naomi continued to grieve her loss. But there were moments, fleeting, inexplicable moments, when they felt her presence. A sudden warmth in the air, a whisper at the edge of hearing, a sense of peace that seemed to come from nowhere. They could not have known the truth, could not have understood the sacrifice she had made, but in those moments, they felt her love, her strength, her connection to the infinite. And somewhere, in the endless expanse of the void, Naomi remained, her essence forever entwined with the fabric of existence, a guardian of balance, and a witness to the profound, terrifying beauty of the truths that lay beyond the veil. Naomi's essence, now fused into the fabric of the void, was no longer bound by the constraints of individuality. Yet in this new existence, she retained a faint echo of self-awareness, a spark of her former identity that persisted even as she became part of something infinite. Her transformation marked the beginning of an entirely new journey, one that would unfold within the intricate currents and boundless dimensions of the void. The void itself was not static, it pulsed with a rhythm that mirrored the ebb and flow of existence. Naomi found herself immersed in this dynamic, her consciousness drifting through layers of meaning and energy that revealed themselves like the turning pages of a cosmic book. These layers were not physical places, but realms of thought and perception, each one more complex and profound than the last. One of the first realms Naomi encountered was what she could only describe as the archive of forgotten lives. Here, the souls of those who had been lost to history, their names and stories erased from memory, gathered in a vast collective. Their essences shimmered faintly like dying embers, but they carried with them a sense of quiet dignity. As Naomi moved through this realm, she felt their presence envelop her, sharing with her their long-forgotten experiences and emotions. From a young soldier who had fallen in an unrecorded battle to a farmer whose family line had disappeared into obscurity, each soul carried a piece of the human story. Naomi realized that, though these lives had been forgotten by the living, they were not meaningless. Their experiences had shaped the world in unseen ways, their actions rippling through time in ways they themselves could never have understood. In this realm, Naomi learned to appreciate the weight of every life, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant. Deeper within the void, she encountered another realm, the labyrinth of regret. This place was unlike the archive. It was tumultuous and raw, filled with the cries and echoes of souls trapped in loops of self-recrimination. Here, regret was not an abstract feeling, but a tangible force, a heavy fog that clung to the essences of those who could not let go of their past. Naomi felt their pain acutely, each fragment of regret piercing her like shards of glass. But as she moved through the labyrinth, she began to understand its purpose. It was not a place of punishment, but a crucible, a space where souls confronted the weight of their choices and learned to reconcile with themselves. Naomi became a witness to their struggles, watching as some souls began to untangle the knots of their regret and ascend to higher realms of understanding. She felt their catharsis as if it were her own, and in doing so, she came to terms with the remnants of her own human doubts and fears. As Naomi drifted further, she reached a realm that she could only call the Eternal Forge. This was a place of creation, where the raw energy of existence was shaped into the building blocks of reality. It was not a forge in the traditional sense, but a swirling vortex of light and sound, where fragments of the void coalesced into patterns that would one day become stars, planets, and even life itself. Here, Naomi sensed the presence of the ancient beings she had encountered before. They were not creators in the sense of gods, but facilitators, guiding the chaotic energy into forms that would sustain the delicate balance of existence. Naomi felt herself drawn into the process, her essence becoming a thread in the intricate weaving of the forge. She did not control it, nor did she fully understand it, but she participated nonetheless. She felt the birth of new worlds, their energy pulsing with potential, and she marveled at the interconnectedness of it all. Each creation was unique, yet each was part of a larger whole, a tapestry of infinite possibilities. Through her participation in the Eternal Forge, Naomi began to sense the cyclical nature of existence more clearly. The void was not merely a place where souls came after death. It was a nexus, a fulcrum where creation and dissolution coexisted. Every soul that entered the void brought with it the energy of its experiences, which was then recycled into the forge to create new forms of life and consciousness. Naomi understood now that her own essence would one day be used in this way, her experiences and insights becoming part of the foundation for something new. Yet even as she embraced this understanding, Naomi felt a pull toward the outer edges of the void, where its boundaries dissolved into the unknown. Here, the void's currents grew wild and unpredictable, their patterns disrupted by forces that defied comprehension. Naomi's essence was drawn toward these disturbances, compelled by a need to explore what lay beyond the familiar. As she ventured into this uncharted territory, Naomi encountered phenomena that challenged even her expanded understanding. She saw glimpses of parallel realities, alternate versions of existence where events had unfolded differently. In one, humanity had never risen to dominance, and the Earth was ruled by a civilization of sentient insects. In another, the stars themselves were alive, their vast, fiery forms communicating through pulses of energy that echoed across the cosmos. These glimpses were fleeting, like fragments of dreams, but they left a profound impression on Naomi. She realized that the void was not the only nexus of existence. There were countless others, each with its own unique structure and purpose. The interconnectedness she had felt was not limited to her own reality, but extended across a vast, multi-dimensional network that defied the limits of imagination. Amidst these discoveries, Naomi encountered what she could only describe as the echoes of the primordial void. These were not beings or realms, but vibrations, remnants of the void's earliest state, before it had taken on its current form. These echoes carried with them a sense of infinite possibility, a reminder of the void's origins as pure, unformed potential. Naomi felt a deep kinship with these echoes, as if they were calling her to return to the source from which all things had emerged. In her exploration, Naomi also encountered other souls who had ventured as far as she had, their essences transformed by their journeys through the void. These souls were rare, their presence a testament to their resilience and curiosity. Naomi communicated with them not through words but through shared understanding, their essences intertwining in a dance of ideas and emotions. Together they explored the edges of the void, pushing the boundaries of what they could perceive and comprehend. One of these souls, a presence Naomi came to know as Kale, shared with her a vision of a realm beyond even the void. This realm, Kale explained, was not a place but a state of being, a fusion of all realities into a singular, infinite consciousness. To reach it, one had to let go of all attachment, all identity, and surrender completely to the flow of existence. Naomi felt both awe and trepidation at the thought. She wondered if this was her ultimate destiny, the final step in her journey. As Naomi contemplated this possibility, she felt a growing sense of purpose. She had been brought to the void not only to witness its truths, but to act as a bridge between realms, a conduit through which the interconnectedness of existence could be understood and embraced. Her transformation was not an end, but a beginning, a call to guide other souls through the complexities of life, death, and the void itself. In the moments when Naomi's essence brushed against the mortal plane, she left behind faint impressions, subtle nudges that guided the living toward deeper understanding. A stranger might suddenly feel an inexplicable sense of peace. A grieving widow might dream of her loved one and wake with renewed strength. Or a scientist might stumble upon an insight that led to a breakthrough. These were Naomi's gifts, her way of contributing to the web of existence even from within the void. Her influence was not limited to the living. Within the void, she became a beacon for lost souls, her presence a steady light that guided them through the labyrinth of their fears and doubts. She helped them find their way to the higher realms, where they could reconcile with their pasts and embrace the infinite possibilities of existence. In doing so, Naomi found fulfillment, her essence resonating with a sense of harmony that transcended the limitations of her former life. As time stretched on, or perhaps ceased to exist entirely, Naomi's essence began to merge more fully with the void's infinite currents. She no longer thought of herself as Naomi, but as part of the greater whole, a thread in the vast tapestry of existence. Yet, even as she dissolved into the fabric of the void, she retained a sense of wonder, a spark of the curiosity that had defined her journey. And so, Naomi continued to explore, to guide, and to create, her essence forever intertwined with the mysteries of the void. Her story was not one of endings, but of eternal transformation, a testament to the boundless potential of life, death, and the infinite unknown. As Naomi's essence became ever more entwined with the void's infinite expanse, she found herself approaching a state of complete dissolution, a moment when the last remnants of her individual awareness would merge fully into the cosmic current. But just before that threshold, a profound realization struck her. The void itself was alive, not as a being with a will or identity, but as an organism of infinite complexity. Every layer, every whisper, every fragment of experience contributed to its vitality. The void breathed through the pulsating energy of all who had passed through it, an eternal dance of creation and renewal. This revelation sparked a final surge of purpose within Naomi. She understood that her journey was not an anomaly, but a vital part of the void's eternal evolution. Each soul that entered the void played a role in shaping its contours. and each transformation added to the collective wisdom that pulsed through its currents. Naomi had been both a witness and a participant, her essence a bridge between the microcosm of human existence and the macrocosm of universal truth. As the last traces of her individual self dissolved, Naomi felt no fear, no loss. Instead, there was an overwhelming sense of unity, a belonging so profound that it defied description. She became a note in the symphony of existence, her essence echoing through the void as part of an unending song. In that final moment, she was not gone, she was everywhere, and she was eternal. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, could you leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on a young woman returning from death? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.